Well, this is it. We have one more game left when it comes to Jet Set Radio. This is the one I've heard the most about. Jet Set Radio Future is almost like a cult classic for the original Xbox. And yeah, it's time to finally play it. This has been a really long time coming. This I've wanted to play a lot more than the Dreamcast games, so let's see how it is. It's Jet Set Radio Future for the original Xbox.
Jet Set Radio Future began development as simply Jet Set Radio 2 on the Dreamcast. However, considering the fate of Sega's final console, the team had to change course. The plan was not to make a direct sequel to the first game, but rather an alternative take on the first game's story. I guess someone on the dev team was a massive fan of Star Fox. With Sega going third party at the time, they released a lot of their titles as exclusives for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, with Jet Set Radio being one of the series going to the original Xbox. The game would be revealed for Microsoft's new console as Jet Grind Radio Future in 2001, but would end up releasing as Jet Set Radio Future in 2002. The version of the game I'll be playing is the Jet Set Radio and Sega GT combo disc, and I'm noting that because of slowdown. The game had some serious frame rate issues on the original Xbox, but when playing it on the Xbox 360, those troublesome sparks are made even worse, and this combo disc gets the worst of it. It is totally playable. I have played my fair share of Sonic Unleashed, so it didn't bother me too much either. However, it's still something to keep in mind. I would have played the game on the original Xbox, but the one I own is a sort of project console I bought broken in repair. It had its clock capacitor go out and eat the traces, and while I got it powering up, it can't read discs because of the DVD drive being dead. I got a working Xbox coming, but since I don't have it yet at the time of recording, I'm just gonna play on the 360. It is a fine way to play the game, so don't worry if that's your only option. Just as I mentioned earlier, this is a different take on the first game story-wise. You play as the GGs, a group of rookies on high-powered skates tagging parts of Tokyo with graffiti to beat rival gangs. You also still listen to Jet Set Radio, ran by the returning Professor K. However, in this game, Professor K holds a more prominent role in the story, as in the first game he simply told you what was going on in between levels, and while he still does that here in between chapters, during the actual gameplay, he will give you your current mission objective and even comment on what you're doing from time to time. Make him a sort of guide. Now let's get this out of the way right now. Future is a lot more of an open game than the original. Instead of 3 chapters of multiple levels, we now have a whopping 8 chapters filled with various missions, making for a lot longer and more complex adventure. Things start out pretty familiar though. Instead of starting as Beat, we start as Yo-Yo, who is looking a lot less heavy than in the first game. Good for him. Still a strange decision I feel, since Beat is still the mascot character. He's even featured on the case of the game. But I guess you unlock him pretty quickly, so it doesn't matter much. As you may expect, we start out recruiting Gum and Corn, which Corn was the Japanese name for Tab in the original. Yeah, not only do we have the title not being changed, but the characters' names are also no longer changed from their Japanese counterparts. Once the tutorial is done, you pick a character and you are free to explore. Throughout the game, certain areas you won't be able to access, not because anything is blocking you, but simply because your character will refuse to go there. You're expected to go to Dogginzaga Hill and are tasked with tagging graffiti by Professor K, then you race B. Tagging works a lot like in the first game. You gather spray cans, then get close to the tag and press the trigger. However, a large change is that the minigame is gone for the larger tags. You simply lock on and use multiple cans to complete it by tagging multiple points. Though the minigame being gone doesn't change much, considering the other changes made to the gameplay that are way more drastic. And we'll get to those in a moment. Once you complete all the tags in Shibuya Terminal, you recruit Combo and run into Poison Jam, where after following them around, they run off. As you go around other areas tagging graffiti, just like the first game, you'll run into the police, and in Churro Street, you'll have your first encounter with Captain Hayashi. Apparently Captain Omashima was considered to be in the game, but was cut to give Hayashi more of a spotlight. Quickly, these encounters show a major issue I have with the game, and that's how segregated everything feels. When you run into the police or Hayashi, it's always a scripted sequence confined to a small arena until you beat them, and then you're let go. This is why it doesn't matter that the graffiti tags are so simple now. You can't even tag anything during these sequences either. While doing the tags, you have nothing else going on. No timer, no enemies, none of that. Instead, to have some challenge, Jet Set Radio Future has a very heavy emphasis on platforming, which I actually totally love. However, I feel like we could have had some sort of police presence to still add some further variety and stakes. In fact, to jump a bit ahead here, they do that very slightly late in the game, but it's just not enough in my opinion. I mean, come on. Imagine if you played a Sonic game and you just go through all the platforming at high speeds with little resistance, and then suddenly a door shuts and you have to defeat all the enemies before you continue. Okay, fuck you too, Sonic Rush.
Regardless of the separation between fighting the police and doing the platforming, this is some really good platforming here. I'm having a blast just riding on the walls, completing all of these crazy jumps. This is some really great level design. Again, I just wish there was some enemies populating it to make things more interesting, you know?
Back to Jet Set Radio, despite that, the platforming is fun. You'll be grinding all over the place, wall riding has a greater presence here than in the first game, and there are plenty of jumps to make. Also, you can now do tricks while on the rail to build speed! Oh my god, thank you Sega! This works amazingly with the increased presence of rails to ride along. Momentum is heavily downplayed though. Often ramps will automatically give you max speed in order to make the jump, and you have a variety of things to do to instantly get max speed whenever you need it. The dash button from the previous game is completely gone now too. New to this game instead is the boost mechanic, which I didn't find much useful honestly. At the cost of 10 spray cans per use, you get a large boost of speed and take the piss out of the frame rate while you're at it. It's good for getting a move on while traveling and is required to stun certain enemies, but for an actual boost it's a little too unwieldy. It sort of reminds me of the boost in the Wii and PS2 versions of Sonic Unleashed. After you tag all the locations in the first few chapters, you race the new Jet 99 gang for flags, and after beating them you find out that Poison Jam is hiding in the sewers. Once you head down there you fall into a trap though where Garam then appears to teach you one of those previously mentioned moves to get max speed. Once you do enough tricks on this half pipe, he drops down some scrap metal that you can grind up. Yep, just defy those physics, and this isn't the only spot in the game you can grind straight up. You can also do it on power lines, and okay, there's suspension of disbelief and there's believing I'm just fucking stupid. Once in the sewers, you have to tag all the switches to open the door and move on, and when you get to the bottom, that's where you find Poison Jam being led by none other than Cube. She picks you against the 3 Poison Jam gang members and now waiting for a boss fight. And for fuck's sake, why do all the bosses in Jet Set Radio have to be these damn tag fights? Are you gonna do anything, Buggy? Huh, this guy's just going in circles too, and this guy, wow. Wow, that was pathetic. I'm grateful because it was next to fucking impossible to keep up with them in the Dreamcast game, and the less I talk about the Game Boy port the better. But this was a bit too easy. After that pathetic boss fight, you have to awaken the Immortals after the noise tanks kidnap Yo-Yo. They even fake you out into thinking they took the dog again, a minor thing that happened in the Dreamcast game that I forgot to mention. In order to awaken the Immortals, you have to complete tags in the new locations of the Skyscraper District, High Gate Street, and Cable Gaga Hill. You also get a boss fight with Hayashi and a mech, have to take down helicopters, and deal with the policemen. Once you complete that, you have a boss fight with the Immortals, and it is just like the Wait, I won? What the fuck? That was even easier than the Poison Jam fight. Okay, it turns out this was a fake out, as you travel to Highway 0 for the actual rival fight. And this one is okay. The Immortals aren't as brain dead as Poison Jam, but it isn't too hard to keep up with them. Once you defeat them, you save Yo-Yo and, well, turns out Yo-Yo is a fucking traitor. I never liked him in the Dreamcast game, and now he kidnaps you. You end up waking up in this stadium with a girl named Jazz, and the noise tanks force you to play Death Ball. A game where you try to hold onto the ball for an entire lap around this course, while passing it back and forth between yourself and your teammate to keep the other team from taking it away. Or at least that was the intention, because you can just hold on to it and outrun everyone because the other team isn't fast enough to catch up. It's extremely easy, and once done, the police interrupt everything and you have another boss fight with Hayashi's Eggman mech here. Just do keep in mind, you don't get to save before this boss fight, so if you die, you'll have to redo the final round of Death Ball again to get back here. Yes, this is one of those games where when you die, you get booted to the fucking title screen and have to reload your last save. Though this point and the final boss are really the only moments in the game where I found that to be an actual issue where I had to redo significant things. Despite that though, this is a good boss fight. I would have loved to see others like it. There was the previously mentioned fight in Hiking Street, but that was a lot more basic and cramped, so I didn't like it as much. After you beat Hayashi, you escape and all the areas are filled to the brim with various noise tank robots, and you have to run into them to destroy them for a short distraction of a mission. Then you go to Dinosaurian Square, and Cube reveals that the yo-yo that captured us is actually just a noise tank in disguise.
I found you, faker!
You then have a boss fight with the noise tanks, and god damn it, I really wanted to like this fight. You grind on the rails of various roller coasters and it looks awesome, but it makes it a bit of a pain to keep up with them, and it makes me resort to Strats of the Dreamcast game. Go somewhere and wait for them to stop and tag them as they begin to restart their loop. It took forever, and I wish these boss fights would just stop. We are almost entirely through 3 games. We're 3 games in now, and not a single rival battle has been good to this point. The fight with Hayashi and a mech is great, I just want more of those. Hayashi's a great villain too, he certainly has more of a personality than Amashima. Why couldn't he have gotten more of a spotlight instead of having these stupid rival fights? Once you do beat the noise tanks, you find out that the mayor of Tokyo, Gojiro Kaku, has sent his assassins of the Golden Rhinos out. All the graffiti you've done is covered up, but unlike the first game, redoing it is completely optional here. Instead, a man named Clutch comes to help you, but only if you have enough graffiti souls. These were in the first game, but they only unlocked more graffiti options to customize your tags, but here you have to have 40 of them. And when you do, Clutch steals them and runs off. You then have to track him down, but just be aware there's a game-breaking bug where Clutch can no longer spawn when moving to a new location. If this happens, do not save the game. If you do, that's a dead save file, and this is a 2002 Xbox title, there's no Skyward Sword save channel to fix your data, let alone an update patch off the internet. After you find Clutch, he gives you back the graffiti souls and you go to the 4-5 residential zone, which turns out to be a trap where Goji, has planted bombs to kill you. Yeah, Goji is voiced by none other than Charles Martinet, which I think makes this the closest we'll ever get to having Mario as a villain in a Sega game. Charles Martinet does a great job though, and I love his performance here. It certainly will be hard to replace him in Jet Set Radio 3 now that he's retired. I know the original Jet Set Radio had a different voice, but I don't remember that voice because he had almost no lines in that game, and this one is just so much better. Really hope Charles is enjoying retirement because the range that man had is just outstanding.
Soon, when the timer runs out, this building will go kaboom! Fools, you continue to cling to the sad notions of camaraderie and friendship, and because of it, your pitiful little lives will end in a grand display of fireworks.
And as I alluded to earlier, the Golden Rhinos will populate the levels at this point and give you an actual enemies to deal with while doing the platforming. It's just too little too late. Whether it's the bears in costumes, the henchmen running around, it's fine, but it's just not enough to matter. And there's still those scripted battle sequences to deal with, so yeah, it just doesn't work too well.
Once you tag all the switches to disable the bombs, you can then defeat some Golden Rhino goons and save the real Yo-Yo. Then you have to defeat the 2 assassins featured in this game. Yeah, only 2 this time around, in the boss fights. Near the Reptar statue in Churro Street, you face the assassin with Doc Ock arms. And this is another fun boss fight. You grind on the arms to knock him down and then you complete the tag on his back. Simple, but really fun. Then in Highway Zero, you fight the assassin with a flamethrower and wow, that was pathetic. The Golden Rhinos then kidnap Professor K because he's been helping you this entire time. He did mention in the original game that he could have been a target for what you were saying, but this time around he was actually a target because he was more involved. You then go to the Tokyo line to fight another boss against this giant train mech, and this is yet another good boss. Not great though, because you have to use the boost to catch up, and I think you should have had to do tricks instead, but I guess that's a bit subjective. After that, Goji reveals his massive tower broadcasts his new radio station that I assume is meant to mind control everyone, using the Noise Tank's mind control helmet. I'm not sure on his plan here really, but either way he wants to take over Tokyo and you have to do a rival fight with Zero Beat, robotic copies of Beat created by Goji for reasons that I don't think we're ever gonna be told. And of course this is wait. God damn, this is actually a good rival fight, what the fuck? The 2 Zero Beat blocks don't go in brain dead circles, they aren't slow as fuck, they aren't bullshit quick, and they aren't on level design that is a pain to travel across. No, instead they go around doing tricks, but get this, if you cut corners or do tricks yourself, you can catch up with them without having to wait for them to stop and get the tags to beat them. Holy fuck, why did it take them until the last rival fight in the series for them to get it right? I mean, that statement will probably age poorly once the new Jet Set Radio game comes out, whenever the fuck that is, but hopefully, this is the basis for any possible rival fights in that game. This is actually good. Professor K then takes back the radio station and names it Jet Set Radio Future. But Goji isn't done yet and he sucks you into the tower. Suck! Then you fight. Whatever the fuck that is. It isn't as crazy as the giant rhino in the first game, but this weird suit of armor that Goji seems to put on just comes out of nowhere still. It isn't too crazy of a boss fight either. You grind up to where he is, you boost into him to stun him, and then you tag him until the fight's done. It's pretty simple, but I won't dock too many points. It still beats the last 2 games in terms of final bosses. And after that, that's it. You beat Goji, and then the credits roll. Well, the game certainly looks different than the first game. It still has that distinct Jet Set Radio charming style to it. The extra horsepower that the original Xbox provided allowed for some really detailed environments and a lot more complex character designs, even if the frame rate still took a few hits. Whether you prefer the Dreamcast designs or the future designs, I feel is entirely subjective because both look really good. The soundtrack is also amazing once again. Hideki Naganuma returns to compose a ton of new tracks and they are all amazing. I don't think I've ever met someone who likes Jet Set Radio and doesn't enjoy the concept of love. A lot of songs for the Dreamcast game also got great remixes and the licensed music is just as good as last time. While it has its rough spots, Jet Set Radio Future is an amazing game that I wish I'd played sooner. While I think the Dreamcast original feels more complete with its ideas, Future just offers more to do, with bigger areas to explore while also having massive upgrades to the graphics and sound. Future is also more laid back, which can be easier for newcomers to get into rather than the tense, high-paced action of the Dreamcast game. Both are great games, but if you want a Jet Set Radio game to play, and weren't sold on the arcade style of the original, pick up Jet Set Radio Future.
Alright, so that's it. That's the game done. I'm really happy I played it. This has a few rough edges, but overall, its platforming is just unbeatable. It's so fun and great to play. There's elements about this that I truly like more than the Dreamcast game. Even though the Dreamcast game is more complete, shorter, easier to pick up and play, if you're not sold on the Dreamcast game, get this one. It's a good game. Unfortunately, though, unlike the original game that is still available on Steam and was available on the PS3 and Xbox, this one, that only on Xbox sticker still applies. Either you're playing it through backwards compatibility on the 360, or you're getting an original Xbox and playing it that way, which original Xboxes are not easy to come by working because of clock capacitors failing, disk drives dying, all the works. So Sega, if you're listening, please re-release Jet Set Radio Future. Maybe make some tweaks. I don't know what like quality of life improvements you'd make, because it's just a really good game. Any problems I have with it are just things to fix in Jet Set Radio 3 whenever the fuck that's coming out. So yeah, that's all done. I have the next 2 videos planned out, so I am going to go ahead and get to work on them. I'll see you all then. Good night and cheerio. Bye.